Here I have laid out my 3 main objectives for my unit on teaching children about habitats and the different animals and plants within those habitats. So our first learning objective is that given a particular animal, the students will be able to choose the animal's main source of food and their habitat out of a provided list. So I have a few different points that go along with this first objective. I rearranged these in a way that I thought would best help the students to understand the material. So I ended up taking the main point and putting that last because it was a little bit more broad, so I wanted to have that as kind of an overview at the end. So first of all, I was going to have the students learn more about what animals live in these different habitats. And at this point, they will also be assigned their own certain animal, so it'll just be one random animal from any habitat, and they'll be focusing on that animal later on in the lesson. So for this activity, I used mostly PowerPoints as I wanted to keep that the same throughout each of these points here. So the students will be learning about the different animals and habitats through PowerPoint. And then next, they're going to be learning about what the animal eats while it's living in that habitat. That will also be given through the PowerPoint presentation as they go through and just learn the basic information about the animal and their food source. Next is more about the environment of where that animal lives, so the environment and like the weather and the surroundings in that habitat. They will also be learning about this through their PowerPoint. And that will be like the third point that kind of brings together all the information that gives us the very last point here, which is when they're assigned their animal, they're going to be able to talk about where it lives, what's its food source, and just the overall environment that it lives in. And so here, this will be an interactive Edpuzzle video. It'll kind of be an overview for the last 3 points that they learned about. And then at the very end, we will have an assessment, which will be given in the form of a survey. So on my website for the students, they'll take a little survey, they'll identify their animal that they've been assigned, and then choose the correct options out of the next questions for where the animal lives, what they eat, and what the environment is like. Then we move on to our next objective. This one has to do with looking at a virtual ecosystem, and then the students will be making observations about that ecosystem. So here are our main 4 points again. First of all, we want to learn how to teach the students to talk about the observations that they have of an ecosystem. So in doing that, I was going to make an iMovie and just have kind of a sample ecosystem video with me voicing over my observations. So that way I'm modeling for the students what kind of observations that they can also make and how to find those within their video. Next we'll be talking about the aspects of those habitats. So they're going to be looking at an Edpuzzle video, and I love these videos because you can add in questions throughout the video so the students can continue to check their knowledge as they watch it. So they're going to watch that video about the aspects of habitats and answer the questions during the video. Similar with this objective here, I decided to kind of keep it along the same lines of how they're receiving the information. So I'm using the Edpuzzle for all of these points here. The next part is going to be about animal interactions. So again, they're going to be watching an Edpuzzle video and having some questions to answer throughout the video to make sure they're understanding everything about those interactions that the animals have with their environment and their food sources and just overall with their habitat. Then we have plants and their environment. So again, we're going to use the Edpuzzle to talk about the plants and where they live and how they thrive and things like that. And so that will complete the 4 main points, so the students should have a good understanding of the different parts of a habitat, and they will have also had me model for them how to make observations. So then our assessment at the end will be them making their own observations. They're going to write in a discussion board format their observations about the virtual ecosystem that they have seen in a video that's provided on the website. Our last one here is going to be about kind of all the things that we've talked about in the first 2 objectives. So this is our overall ending of the lesson. So the students are going to be given 15 pictures of different plants and animals in 5 different habitats. And they'll be able to match those plants and animals to the habitats that they would live in. And then with this, we also want them to achieve a score of at least 80%, as this is kind of the last overall objective assessment and making sure that they've understood the entire unit about habitats. So again, we have our 4 main points. First of all here, we're going to start with the habitats again. So we're going to do kind of an overview review of the habitats by having the children participate in a habitat song. So they'll turn the song on through the website and be able to sing along with it. And it's kind of a catchy song to remind them of the different habitats and what their main aspects are. Next is the details about plants. And so they're going to watch a Powtoons video about the plants and the animals. A lot of these are going to kind of act as reviews for them, but in a different format. So it's just them being able to see this information again, but in a new way. So maybe students are more visual, or they like to watch things more than interact. It kind of depends on their learning style, but by providing a couple different ways of learning the information throughout these objectives, hopefully they will all be able to understand the information. Next will be the details about animals. So we'll also use a Powtoon to have them kind of review the different animals in their habitats and maybe why those animals live there as well. Lastly is our main point about the plants and animals combined in that habitat. And so here it's going to be a game. It's kind of going to be a review for the quiz itself, the last assessment. So they're going to have just a few plants and animals and a few habitats to match up together as a precursor to the very last assessment. And that will be using purpose games. They have to do a matching segment for the different pictures of plants and animals and matching them to the correct habitat that they would live in. So overall, here's our lesson plan for our unit about habitats and plants and animals.